Okay, everyone, this is the second video in the Histriva series, and this one is going to be the Peace Democrats of the Civil War, also referred to as Copperhead Democrats. Now, the start of the Copperheads really begins right after the firing of Fort Sumter, but their high point is mainly between 1862 and 1864, after the 1864 presidential election. That's when you start to see the downfall of the Copperhead Democrats. Now, these Copperhead Democrats were mainly known also as Peace Democrats, mainly because they thought that a war with the South was not the answer to the problem. They wanted to see no bloodshed by any means necessary, whether that means bringing the South back into the Union or seeing a separate Confederacy become independent. Now, as far as the main figureheads of this Copperhead movement, there were several Democrats. The most well-known Democrat, though, was Clement Vallandigham. He was an outspoken opponent of the Lincoln administration, and it became so bad for the Lincoln administration at one point that he actually, he meaning Lincoln, actually had Vallandigham arrested in his home state of Ohio. But this didn't stop him there. Through prison, he kept, ranting out against the Lincoln administration. And in 1862, he actually ran for Congress re-election in prison. Later on, Vallandigham kind of seeps away because he becomes so much of a problem for Lincoln that Lincoln has him exiled to Canada, and there he will remain till the end of the war, basically. So anyway, besides Vallandigham, you also have other prominent Democrats in the Copperhead movement who try to undermine Lincoln and the Republicans. There are two specific ones, and if you've seen the Lincoln movie, you'll know these two Democrats. And sure, history movies don't portray everything correctly, but this one kind of has it right a little bit. The first one you have to realize is Nathaniel Wood. Now, Nathaniel Wood, he's a very interesting character. At the beginning of the Civil War, when the South was seceding, Nathaniel Wood, who was the mayor of New York City at that time, proposed that the New York City Council take New York and create an independent state of New York City. It would become its own city-state, therefore it would be separate from the Union, and it could continue its cotton trade with the newly formed Confederacy. This, however, did not prove out well. There wasn't that much popularity for Wood's secession movement, and it really didn't go as planned for him. Also, I think also troops were sent in to New York City to, quell, something. But it really wasn't that popular. Anyway, another well-known Democrat who is also in the Copperhead movement is George Pendleton. Now, the reason why George Pendleton should be important is because the 1864 presidential election. In the 1864 presidential election, the Democrats nominate a former Union commander, General George McClellan. Now, McClellan is part of a section of the Democratic Party known as War Democrats, who are actually for the war. But in order to make the Democratic Party more one in 1864, McClellan and the wartime fraction of the Democratic Party at the time thought that they should appease the peacetime Democrats and nominate a Copperhead. And this particular Copperhead was George Pendleton of Ohio, same state where Vladingham was from. Now, McClellan thought this would help out the ticket, kind of even out the score, and, the peace Democrats with the war Democrats all together for one common goal will defeat the radical Republicans in Lincoln in the 1864 election. This, however, failed, and Lincoln won an astounding majority in the 1864 presidential election. But the Copperhead movement doesn't end with the 1864 presidential election. Even though things were looking bad for the Democrats at the end of 1864, they still push onward into trying to defeat what they see as radical republicanism and, the black Republicans, because, the Copperhead Democrats were racist at this time. So anyway, with this, the Democrats have one more chance in the 13th Amendment. The Emancipation Proclamation was only a wartime document, and with it, after the war was over, the slaves would have to be returned to their former masters. So Lincoln and the radical Republicans worked very hard to set up this 13th Amendment to abolish slavery. Now, the first time it went in to the House, it failed to pass. But after the 1864 presidential election, Lincoln and the radical Republicans, such as Thaddeus Stevens, Charles Sumner, they pushed it forward to see if they can get votes again. Now, during these House debates between 1864 and 1865, a lot of prominent Democrats, such as Ohio Congressman George Pendleton, you have, of course, Nathaniel Wood, who, after losing in 1862 to a Republican for New York City mayor, ran for Congress and won that. And you also have other prominent Democrats, George Yeaman of Kentucky, he also is against it. There's also one more, but I forget his name. But anyway, during these House debates, they all bring up insane notions of, if we were to free the slaves, what else would ensue? One Democrat gave a speech in the House of Representatives saying that how far will you push if we make all African Americans free? He said that they would have to give them to vote, because if you're going to get them free, it would be wrong to not give them to vote. And because of the political times in the late 19th century, there was also fear of, well, if we give African Americans the vote, do we have to give women the vote too? Shudder to think that we have to give them the vote as well. So you really have, in 1864 and 1865, peace Democrats in Congress basically fighting off, Republican ways of getting through the amendment. They hashed the Republicans in Congress. They hashed President Lincoln. I think they even hash generals as well. But in the end, it depends on who you know and stuff like that. In 1864-65, namely 1865, a lot of Democrats in the House of Representatives in which the amendment has yet to pass through, they lost their House seats in 1864. So you have a lot of lame duck Democratic congressmen going into the last session of Congress before March. So Lincoln thinks that they could buy the votes for these lame duck Democrats. And they don't buy the votes through money, though. They buy them through patronage jobs. Because Lincoln's second term is about to begin in March, he needs new positions to fill. So you get a retiring Democratic congressman, say he wants to be, the head of a railroad board, or he wants, the entire Western Reserves, that could be beneficial. So, in a way, Lincoln's helpers would say, okay, if you vote yes for the 13th Amendment, we will give you, the Ohio Railroad, or, port secretary, something like that. They would give bribes to lame duck Democrats. Now, as far as how these worked, some of the bribes did work, some of them didn't. Not a lot of Democrats took the bribes that were going to be ousted as of March. And a lot of those who did accept the bribe were hunted down by their Democratic colleagues who were Copperheads, and they basically tried to shake them down and be like, no, you have to vote with us, you have to vote no. In the end, though, a lot of Democrats did vote for the amendment, even though the Republicans had a huge majority in the House. They needed, I think, 12 or 13 Democrats to vote with them in order for the amendment to pass through the House of Representatives. Now, there were a few Democrats that said yes, mainly because of principle, or because I think there was only one or two that voted yes because of patronage. But other than that, some of them voted, it depends. I know there was one that was a staunch opponent of the amendment who ended up voting for the amendment in the end. So anyway, after the amendment passes in early 1865, the Peace Democrats, the Copperheads, they kind of go into the abyss, basically, because the war is going well for the Union after this. Grant and Sherman are pushing forward into the South, and as victory after victory comes back to Northern papers, the cause of the Copperhead Democrats just seems basically pointless, with the war ending and Richmond about to be taken. So you have the Copperheaded movement going from this strong anti-war movement in 1862 to going through 1864, 1865 as dwindling down and not being a good force anymore of an opponent for the war. So anyway, that is the Copperhead movement, basically summed up. And I hope you like this new series. I'm trying to get through a few ways. Like I said before, I'm not going through a lot of stuff that much, but I hope you like it.